I'm Pedro from A&P Reacts, and my favorite artist right now, I would have to say, is Sepultura.
All right. Well, that opens up a whole lot of things for us to talk about. I love how you said, at least now it is. So that, let's just address an elephant in the room straight away. Define Sepultura now for me.
Well, the reason I said now is because if you asked the 12-year-old me, I would have said Slayer. If you asked the 40-year-old me, I probably would have said Winter Sun. But I don't think we would be talking right now if it wasn't for Sepultura. They're really the band that got me into metal. So for me to sit here and say Slayer, Winter Sun, insert any other band out there that I'm a huge fan of, it would be a little bit dismissive of the one that was the catalyst to it all.
So when I say the elephant in the room, let's just go straight into that. Sepultura, it's almost like, the modern day Black Sabbath, where people will never stop arguing, Dio or Ozzy. It's now been probably 2 or 3 times as long that Derek Green has been the frontman of Sepultura, but there's a ton of people that will say, like, well, if there's no Cavalera part of Sepultura, it's not really Sepultura for me. So do you have an opinion there?
I've been in both camps. So, I feel like the younger me, the more, what can I say, the more anarchist of me when I was a young lad would probably say no Cavalera brothers, no Sepultura. That's how I felt at that time. And that's how I felt for a very long period of time, I'll be honest. It was not something that I completely got over it. 3 records with Derek, I was still holding on, to the Sepultura brothers. I mean, Igor still stayed for a little bit longer than Max, but for me, I held on to that train of thought and to that belief for a very long period of time. I think with age, with time, I've gotten to understand that everything changes in life. That's why we have the seasons. The seasons change, the weather changes, we change. And I realized it would be so unproductive of me to hold on to that archaic thought that the band that I love and that got me into metal, I could no longer love just because a few guys left the band and there was, issues between them. It's been a journey for me. It really has. It took me a long time to get over that breakup. It was almost like I went through a breakup, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, because, you feel, as a fan, you feel yourself invested in the band, and somehow you feel like they owe you something, even though they don't really owe you anything.
Well, so that feeling might just be because they're Brazilian, you're Portuguese, and you might still feel that you still somehow have a claim to that land. I don't know.
No, it has nothing to do with colonialism, to be honest with you. It's just really, it is the fact that they played such a huge role in my youth, and you connect with that, and those songs and those guys became almost part of your family. Obviously, they don't know that, but that's how you, as a fan, how you feel towards the band. And so it took me a long time of growth, of understanding. I think also talking to Max a lot over the years now since we started the channel, and getting to know him a little bit better, and seeing that he has gotten over it. You know what I mean? So maybe that has also helped me get over it, and just really appreciate the 2 different eras of the band. And it's not about one being better than the other. It's just about two different sides of Sepultura. There's the Sepultura of the past, and there's the Sepultura of the present. And I think for any fan of any band out there that still holds on to that mantle of the original lineup, or the band with a certain person singing, or a certain person playing bass, or a certain person playing guitar was the band that I want, and anything beyond that, it's not worth it. I honestly feel like that's such a backwards way of thinking that doesn't really achieve anything. The only thing that achieves is you missing out on some great music.
So walk us through how you discovered Sepultura. Were you aware of this band from the early days when they were just in Brazil, or did it happen like mid 90s or early 90s when they started breaking through, more globally? Like, walk us through that.
So I wasn't a metalhead at all. I didn't listen to metal at the time. I was more into hip hop and pop music and rock, just regular hard rock. Like I'm a big fan of the Doors, so that's more like what I was listening to at the time. And I had a double deck tape recorder back home in Portugal, and I was the only guy that had it. Everybody only had singles. I was the only guy that had a double. And a friend of mine came over with a tape that had bootlegged, obviously, that had a Rise on one side and had Beneath the Remains on the other. And he came over after school on a Monday for me to make a copy for him. It was somebody else's tape for me to make a copy for him. And as you know, it's not like you're recording MP3s here. You actually have to play every single song because you have to press play on one side and play record on the other. So you had to listen to the damn albums in real time. So I had to listen to Beneath the Remains and Arise back to back while I was doing this tape. And I was like, how can you guys listen? Like, this is not music. This is just, there's a guy screaming at the mic. There's a bunch of people making noise. You give me a guitar, I can do this shit. You know what I mean? That was the way I looked at metal, not being a metalhead. And the guy came back the next day for me to record 2 more tapes. So it wasn't punishment enough of one day. Now I got to listen to these 2 albums back to back to back to back.
Right.
And we did this, I would say, for 5 days straight. Every day he would bring more tapes for me to bootleg these 2 albums for other people. By Friday, I was like, I'm making copies for myself. This shit is amazing. So I think I was pinned down and submitted into liking the band because it just goes to show you, if you listen to something for a long period of time, on repeat, on loop, eventually, it doesn't matter how bad it is, and I'm not saying they were bad. I'm just saying It doesn't matter how bad you perceive it to be. Eventually, I think you'll end up liking it just because it becomes almost elevator music. It becomes part of your surrounding. And those 2 albums became part of my surrounding. And once I was able to digest it, understand it, appreciate them, I was like, okay, now I need to listen to more.
Should I make an assumption that, I guess, Beneath Remains, Arise, this is like at the end of the pure, like, let's call it death thrash era of the band, with Chaos AD would start to be one of those bands that really ushered the era of groove metal. Throughout the mid-90s, I would say those guys, Pantera, maybe early Machine Head, really, who changed the sound of extreme metal in those days. Did you play those cassettes so many times that one of the 3 songs you want to highlight is of one of these albums?
Actually, one is from each of. So from the three songs, one is from each of these records because those were the 2 that really stood out.
Yeah.
Immediately, not immediately, but once I got into those records, those 2 songs were 2 songs that I was like, "This is the shit."
Yeah. All right. So let's maybe start with the oldest one. So Beneath the Remains, which one would be your pick?
Inner Self. I have to give it to Inner Self because many times I walk some dirty streets with nothing but hate in my mind. For a 12, 14-year-old kid growing up in a small, really small, poor town in Portugal, where you feel completely disconnected from the world, and then you feel disconnected from your parents, you feel disconnected from the adults, you just feel very lonely, and you find yourself gravitating towards like-minded people who listen to the same music as you. And then when you look at each other, you have long hair, you dressed in a certain way.
Hold up. You had long hair at one point?
I did have long hair at one point in time, yeah. Not really too long, but like up to my shoulders. So I did have some hair. That was before the mortgage and the kid. So the being in that environment, that song connected with me. The lyrics of that song connected to me because I felt like that song was talking about my reality, my world. And I didn't have, my parents were, middle, upper class. I did have a good upbringing financially. It's not like I was a poor kid by no means. I mean, I was the only kid with a double tape deck. So, life was good, my friend. Life was good. So, it wasn't really from that financial point of view that I felt disconnected. I just felt disconnected from a way of thinking, from,
Right.
what is the future going to bring? Where do I stand here? Like, what does life mean to me? Like, what am I going to do? Like, all of these things. And then seeing friends of mine in the similar situation, but perhaps even a more perilous situation than the one that I was in, and wondering, okay, what is going to be of them? Like, what's going to happen to them? So being that kid, feeling completely disconnected from the world, completely disconnected from the adult society around me, that song was my soundtrack, was my representation. It really expressed how I felt, how I view the world. And I felt like the band was really speaking, not to me, but they were speaking of me in that song.
You already teased that your second pick is going to be found on the Arise album, which is, I don't think fans of the band will never really get to what is the best album of Sepultura, but a chance that fans will call out Arise as the #1 album is high, I think. Old school fans probably between that, maybe also Chaos AD. But tell us, what was that one song on that album that truly spoke to you, or for whatever reason stood out?
Arise. Not because of the way it starts with that very somber, sinister sound that opens up the track, and then it just blasts into that freaking riff that's so good. Not because of that, because I watched the video on Headbangers Ball. And I remember there was a friend that was better off than me. Not only he had a double tape decker, but he also had a CD with a tape deck that he could record. But he also happened he was at the next level. But he also had satellite. He was the only guy in my town with satellite with access to Headbangers Ball on MTV. So what he would do is he would record the whole Headbangers Ball show on Saturday night. And then Sunday, we would all go to his house and just watch it on VHS, everything that was recorded from the night before. And I remember, and then we would bootleg the videos and we would make our own mix videotapes that we can then enjoy in our own homes. That I would do in my house because I had 2 VCRs. As you can see, I was balling back then. So I watched that video, and that video cemented the status that the band had and my love for the band. And then, I remember watching that video and thinking 2 things. Max's BC Rich guitar was the coolest shit I had ever seen in my life. I had never seen a guitar that looked like that had that feel, that style. I was blown away. I was like, damn, I don't even play guitar. I would want to have a guitar like that. It's just super cool. And then the second thing was his army camo shorts. I wanted a pair of army camo shorts. I still wear a pair, the same style, same color. I wear it all the time. And I think one of the main reasons why I wear army camo shorts all summer long, different colors, different styles, but you pretty much 90%, 95% of the time you see me in the summer at a show, I'm wearing army camo shorts. The reason is Max. It's not like we're not like now where you can go see 4 different shows a week if you want to. Back then, not many bands came to Portugal, and when they did, they were playing in Lisbon. I'm from a small town. I didn't have the access or the availability to be able to go to shows. So seeing one of these bands would be like, wow, it would be something amazing. So the video was the next best thing. And that video, the way it looked with the guys on the cross, like very dystopian, like, you know what I mean? It was just so badass. The whole thing was just so great with dust in the air and just massive hair moving around with the head banging and all of that jazz. And those shorts and that guitar, that visual was extremely important for me. It marked me to this day in terms of my choices of clothing. It just really goes to show the kind of impact that something like that can have on a kid. I think sometimes we take that shit for granted. I think sometimes we don't really realize how the visuals could really impact a teenager, a young kid, and really mark them for their lives. This proves to me how important that video was, that left that lasting impression on how I dressed. Now, beyond that, it's a phenomenal song. What a great opening track. I think if you're looking at opening tracks on Sepultura albums, that has to be up there as one of the best ever opening tracks on a Sepultura album. It's just a great song. It's menacing. It's heavy. It has great riffage, great vocals. It's just incredible. Great lyrics too. Really good lyrics as well. So it's just a really complete song on a very complete album, which to me, it's their best album.
I see the world old. I see the world dead.
When did you get to see the band for the first time?
I haven't seen them yet.
You've not seen Sepultura?
I've seen Soulfly many times, but I haven't seen Sepultura. I plan on going this summer when they play in Toronto. It's just that for whatever reason, when they played in Portugal, because you talked about mainstream before. In Portugal, I wouldn't say they're a mainstream band, but I would say they're very close to that because obviously of their Brazilian roots, the connection that Brazil has with Portugal. They are a super popular band there. They're a very, it's almost like they're kind of ours, even though they're really not, but we're very welcoming to them in Portugal because of obviously the history between the countries and the language as well, the common language. So for one reason or another, I just never really had a chance to see them. Either I've been sick or out of the country or not available or whatever the case might be. So I haven't been able to see them, but it's definitely on my bucket list, and I think I'm going to be able to check that one off this summer when they play in Toronto.
So before we get lost in more stories and nostalgia and the band's journey and what the members are doing today, take us to your third pick.
Refuse Resist. And this is not to say they haven't released great songs. I mean, the last album, QUADRA, is phenomenal. I would say probably their best record since Roots. After, and I'm not a big fan of Roots, but since Roots, that is their best record in my humble opinion. And that album is stacked with great songs. But for me, it comes down, and I think it comes down to a lot of people. It all boils down to when you discover the band, the impact that those records had on you, and that plays a factor. So it's not about new Sepultura versus old Sepultura. It's not about that. It's just about those three records came at a very important time in my life, and at a time where I was a young kid, easy to be impacted by the music. And that Refuse Resist song, I saw the video first. I saw the video before the album came out, because it was a single. They released the music video, and it was not on Headbangers Ball. It was just on a regular music show that we had in Portugal, where they showcase upcoming albums. And I remember seeing that video, and I'm like, this is badass. Like, the song is badass, but the video too. The video really represents well the lyrical content and the message of the song with the visuals that's putting forward. It's a song that still holds up to this day. When I hear that track anywhere I go, if that song plays, I'm like, yes.
So you've said that you've been to a Soulfly show. Soulfly, absolutely a band that stands on its own. I mean, Soulfly has now been around twice as long or three times as long that Sepultura with Cavalera singing existed. Do you also ardently follow what all the individual members have done? Because obviously, just to stay with Max, he's done a million things. You have Go Ahead and Die with his son as well. And then now the brothers are back together, and there's all these reissues and tours to celebrate a specific album. Does that excite you as well, or do you keep going back to the roots?
I basically,
no pun intended.
I listen to Sepultura, I listen to Cavalera Conspiracy, I listen to Soulfly, Go Ahead and Die. I just listen to everything that any guy from either the past or the present of the band are involved in, because at the end of the day, they've proven to be great musicians, and they've proven to be incredible music that I really connect with. So I follow what anything. I want to listen to anything, because it's like this. When I listen to something from Cavalera Conspiracy, not Soulfly, because Soulfly really has a very independent sound from what Sepultura was doing in the past. But when I listen to a band like Cavalera Conspiracy, for example, it takes me a little bit more to what the Sepultura of the Chaos AD and the Arise was all about. So it allows you to hear new music and almost think, oh, this is what they would sound like if they were all still together. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you get to fantasize a little bit about it. So I like to listen to it because of that. I like to listen to Soulfly because it's Max, and anything he does, I want to listen to. Then I like to listen to the new Sepultura because it's Sepultura, and I think Andreas Kisser is one of the great guitar players of all time.
Right.
Very underrated, in my opinion. When a lot of people talk about guitar players, I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. Being the guy that he is, and all the hardships that he's gone through in his own personal life as well.
Yeah.
And to still persevere and continue to make music, I think that deserves a tip of the hat. So I just enjoy listening to anything those guys do, and I think they're just a solid band. You know what I mean? And I don't think us as fans should get involved in whatever issues band members have with one another. It would be like me getting involved in somebody else's marriage problems.
Right.
You know, it's business. I can be friends with the wife. I can be friends with the husband, even if they decide to get divorced. I can still be friends with both of them because I'm not a party in what happened. I'm just an outside person that still can have a relationship with both. So, as I said earlier, growing up has allowed me to have that different perspective, that I can have that appreciation for what both camps are doing, and just enjoying everything that they do without having to say, oh, this is good, but it would have been better with this guy. You know, like, I just find that so defeatist. So I don't like to do it at all. And I've always had the philosophy, well, not always, but more so in my later years now, I've had the philosophy that if you don't like something that a band is doing now, don't listen to it. If people say, Horacle was the best In Flames album of all time, I don't like anything that they've done since. Okay, go listen to that album. It's still available on iTunes. You can still listen to it on Spotify. It's not like it's been deleted forever. Right. So if you don't like the new stuff, go listen to the old stuff. Nobody's stopping you from listening to Arise until the cows come home. You know, you can go listen to that album as many times as you want. So the band doesn't owe the fans anything. You know, you may feel so, but it's not the case. You buy an album, there's an exchange. You paid for the record, they gave you the record. That's where the commitment ends. The band has the right to grow, and they have the right to evolve and express themselves, and because you do too. You're not the same person that you were 20 years ago. How can you expect the band now to be the same band that they were 20 years ago? It's just unrealistic to have that sort of mindset and hold bands to that expectation.
All right, well, Pedro, thanks for lifting the curtain a little bit and showing a little bit more about who influenced you on your journey, and sharing some of those stories from a Pedro with hair, with a double tape cassette player who was, the baller in town. I just have visions of you walking around.
No, I never did that. It was too expensive for me to walk around with it.
And it had to stay plugged in probably as well. Awesome. All right, well, Pedro, thank you so much. So it was fun talking to you. We should do this more. And thanks for sharing. Love your pick. I agree with you. Sepultura. I mean, obviously, we're not that much apart age-wise. So I was already a teenager when you were still a teenager, when Sepultura was making a lot of waves in the early and mid 90s. And I agree with you. It has a band that has ups and downs, but I can't wait for you to see their live show for the first time, because it's going to be amazing. The band is in great shape these days, so that'll be a fantastic show. And I'm pretty sure that the 3 songs that you listed will be on that set list. So
I'm sure as well.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.